Welcome everyone to this Let's Play of Kerbal Space Program. Now in the previous episode, Jeb didn't exactly excel himself on his flyby past the Mun, but he did earn us some science. We now have 140 science. So let's pop into the Research and Development building and spend that science. Now if we just scroll over a bit, we have the choice of General Construction with the ever useful strut, or flight control with the ever useful scriptable control system, reflectron, another smart part, winglets, inline reaction wheels, cockpits. I mean, what more could we want? Well, let's have a look. Now, of all of these other items, all of which are at 90 science, we could go with fuel systems that contains the external fuel duct and some larger tanks. Propulsion systems gives us some very small engines and fuel tanks suitable for satellites. We could go the route of aerodynamics to get more parts for our planes. But I think we're going to go down here for electrics, because if we're going to go anywhere, we're going to need the cannot do without photovoltaic panels and bigger batteries. So I definitely think we need this one. So let's spend 90 science on getting the panel and the batteries, and then go with flight control for a further 45 to get this veritable Aladdin's cave of extra parts. So let's get that for the 45. This is 5.5 left. Can't get anything else with that, so we're going to need to get more science, and that means more contracts. And that means a chat with Jean. Good afternoon, Jean. Nice to see you again. I see that the Field Research Group has won almost all of the Collect Science contracts. So that probably includes all of the contracts the CATS Corporation would have been doing. But we'll come back to CATS Corporation contracts a little bit later. Because today I think we are going to rendezvous two vessels in the orbit of Kerbin. Now, all we need to do is to have two different vessels in orbit of Kerbin within visual range of each other, and then kill their relative velocities to achieve this goal. So you don't actually have to dock them, we just have to bring them very, very close together. I mean, what could possibly go wrong? Well, just in case something does go wrong, we're going to do some additional science, some additional work by testing the back thumper solid fuel booster at the launch site, because we'd probably need some solid fuel boosters anyway, so why not the thumper? All we need to do is to activate this part through the staging sequence, which we will undoubtedly do as part of the launch. We won't get much back for it, but it is another contract under our belt. So let's accept that contract. Let's accept the Rendezvous 2 Vessels contract from the Kerbin World First Record Keeping Society, and go over to the VAB and build ourselves a craft. Now we're going to build ourselves two identical crafts. So we'll start off with the one Kerbal cockpit, and then go with a parachute. So get our pilots back, Jeb and Val, safe and sound. Now I'll want something for them to eat and drink whilst they are up there, so in case they get stranded there a little bit longer than intended. So let's squeeze on two of these TAC life support capsules. Don't have to be entirely symmetrically placed, but I am a bit of a completionist in that sense. Now, what other parts do we have? What did we just unlock? We did just unlock the scriptable control system. Now, we've used that before in a previous universe, so let's use that again now. Let's get ourselves our heat shield as part of our return, and finally let us get a cannot do without photovoltaic panel, and we will squeeze some of these on the front like so. Now the only thing I'm a bit concerned about is they are probably exposed to the airstream, so we might end up losing them. Worry about that when the time comes. Now from the science category we can get ourselves our Kerbal engineering system. We don't need 6 of them, 1 will do. And before we forget, we'll need somewhere to put our electricity, so let's get our new battery. Can anyone see the, oh there we go, new battery. So let's get the new battery on there so they will have plenty of electrical charge to keep them happy whilst awaiting rendezvous in space. So that's going to be our return vessel, so working backwards as you do. Let's get a decoupler and sort out our rendezvous stage. It's going to be very simple. It's going to be that mid-sized tank with the Terrier 909 engine on the back of it. So that's going to be our rendezvous stage. So that is what we are going to use to rendezvous the 2 vehicles. Now only one of them is going to be doing the rendezvousing, so one of them will have a little bit of excess fuel left over, which I will undoubtedly waste. Yeah. Should we see if we can not waste it? Let's see if we can not waste it by putting some additional parachutes onto this bottom section here, like so. So we will endeavour not to waste that bottom section, but if we come down hard we may have to. So there we go. We're going to endeavour to keep it. Okay, well that's our rendezvous section. Next we need to get the darn thing into orbit. So this is where we need our brute force and ignorance. So let's just get 4 of these tanks. Alt click to duplicate that pair, and then get an engine on the base, which I think will use the LVT-30 Reliant. So that's going to be the bulk of our launch stage, but we still need to do some refinements. Now the most obvious refinement we need to do is to add our Thumper solid fuel booster engine so we can complete that contract. So let's get that in there like so, and it will rest on the bottom of those engines like so, and that gives us just over 5,000 delta V. So that should be good. Now let's make sure we've got all our staging set right. Let's make sure, no, that's the wrong separator. There we go. So I think that is now correct. There we go. So that gives us 5,000 delta V. That should be plenty to get us into orbit. We have plenty of thrust to weight ratio in this bottom section, so we can probably reduce our thrust somewhat from the solid fuel boosters to about 2. Let's get that to about 2. There we go, that'll do nicely. I think we should have some aerodynamic nose caps for those solid fuel boosters. Don't want to waste any of that fuel and that thrust with drag. Now let us get ourselves some, whoops, too many winglets. I do like these winglets. These are the AVR8 winglets. They are very, very good. Use them for all kinds of aircraft and steering of spaceships. So that is looking good. What next? Well, next I think we shall go for some smart parts. Where are they? Smart parts. Not the altimeter, but the Drain X1. We've seen that in use before. So let's attach that down here at the bottom on the solid fuel booster. If we give that a right click, it is going to trigger a staging action when the solid fuel reaches 0. So that's exactly what we want it to do. And again, on this bottom tank in here, right click, we want staging when liquid fuel also reaches 0, in other words when it's empty. So that will automate our staging for us. So let's recap. We have our return stage up here, complete with the scriptable control system. We have our orbital and rendezvous stage with the LV-909, and then we have our brute force and ignorance stage, which is the solid fuel boosters and then the liquid fuel section in the center. So let's see. I wonder if we can, because we definitely have plenty of Delta V. I'm just wondering whether we can squeeze in another fuel tank in here. Just give us a little bit of extra leeway. It only added about, well, how much did it add? So let's see, how much did that add? It adds 4,890, so what is it, about 300 Delta V? Adds about 300 Delta V. Should be good to go. Should be good to go. Let's just up the thrust of these solid fuel boosters just a little bit, just to compensate for the extra weight on launch. Let's just double check the staging. We have the solid fuel boosters, then we jettison them and continue with the LVT-30. We then separate out the brute force and ignorance stage and continue with our Terrier engine. We do our rendezvous, we return, and we may or may not dispose of that lower part. We shall worry about that when the time comes. Right, well, let's name this craft. We'll name this vessel. We're going to name it the Pirate and Fade 1 ship. So Mark 1. And this is named after a couple of excellent YouTube players of both KSP and a number of other excellent games. So we will save that, and we will take Jeb out on a journey up into orbit to await rendezvous with Val. So I'll see you there. Well, we can see that Jeb is in position in the cockpit of the Pirate and Fade Mark 1. So let's get the KOS terminal open, and let's just make a copy of the ascend script. Let's copy ascend5.ks, if I could spell, send5.ks, and copy that to volume 1 locally within the vehicle. Let's run that script. So let's run ascend5.ks, and with a complete hands-off approach, we're going to let Jeb fly this craft. We know how well that went in the flyby, so let's hope he does a little bit of a job this time. So we have a very gentle curve being calculated by the KOS script, very gentle curve to our gravity turn. We also have our smart parts to do our staging, so it really is all hands off. No throttle, no staging, because the smart parts will do the staging. Let's just get the throttle to maximum and then let the KOS script complete the turn. The turn is set for 45 degrees by 32 kilometers, so that is a very, very gentle gravity turn. And our final apoapsis is set for 80 kilometers, and that will give us a point at which we can circularize. Now, one of the things about orbiting and rendezvousing in orbit is you need to be able to adjust your orbit so that one of your craft will catch or fall behind to meet with the other. So being in orbit at 70 or 80 kilometers doesn't really give you very much flexibility. So when we get into orbit, I'm going to put Jeb into a 200 kilometer orbit, and then that will give Val a lot of flexibility when speeding up or slowing down to meet with Jeb's craft. So we are now at 23 kilometers with an apoapsis of 35 kilometers, so we've got about halfway before we will be in space. We are currently at about 50 degrees to the horizon, so at 32 kilometers the script will halt the turn and just cruise. There we go, we are now going to cruise to 80 kilometers. So all Jeb has to do now is wait. You can see at the top there, you can see we are now at 60 kilometers, so we're almost going to be out of the atmosphere. This is the predicted highest point. Now we will lose a smidgen of that distance because there is still a little bit of air resistance, but not much. So we are now at 80. There we go. We are now at 80. The program has ended, and manual control has returned to Jeb. I'm not sure that is such a good thing. So let's get our maneuver in place. So let's just get the maneuver extended out to approximately 200 kilometers. There's about 150, 170, 177, 87. Where are we going? 209. It's not actually that important, because a little variation will make it a little bit easier for us to practice our rendezvous in future. So let's just get ourselves turned around, get onto the maneuver now. That's a 56-second burn. Now most of that will be done with the LV909, so I'm going to start a little bit early. So instead of, what would that be, 28 seconds to be exactly halfway, we'll probably go on the sort of 35, so in about 5 seconds time. And there we go. Now we're using up the last of our brute force and ignorance launch stage. Now normally you would have to be in normal view mode, not map mode, in order to complete the staging action. But we have smart parts, and smart parts will take care of that for us. So if you just watch, you'll see there we go, just a slight change there in the G-force, a little click, crunch in the background. That was the main brute force and ignorance stage, our launch stage, there we go, being jettisoned. So let's just now concentrate on keeping ourselves on the maneuver node. Let's switch back to map mode, see how we're doing. See our periapsis just appearing out of the planet on the other side there. 20 seconds of burn left. Here we go. Apoapsis is about to snap round. And when we get out to about 200, there we go. A little bit too much, doesn't really matter. Let's kill that maneuver node and just circularize with another maneuver node on the far side of the planet. So what was this? This was 236. So let's go for a roughly circular orbit. Wait for the periapsis to snap round. There we go. And let's just move the maneuver node. There we go, that'll do just nicely. So what's that? 237 to 236. Doesn't have to be accurate. All the more fun if it isn't, trying to rendezvous with a very eccentric orbit. But that should be fine. Our inclination looks pretty good, looks okay. So we will position ourselves on the maneuver node. There we go. And then we shall use the warp to AP maneuver handle. You can see us coming around here. It's a 6-second burn. We should have plenty of fuel. We've got plenty of delta V left. Remember, this is just a parking orbit. Val's going to be doing all the hard work. So there we go. Let's burn off that delta V. And that's 232 to 237. That should be, that's fine. Like I say, this is a parking orbit. This is the target for Val to aim at. So she has got to go and, let's pretend we're going to go and rescue Jeb. Let's go and rescue Jeb from this precarious orbit around Kerbin, this highly elliptical, this highly eccentric orbit around Kerbin. So let's return back to the KSC, not without, of course, not without just doing a little bit of prep work. Now, one of the pieces of prep work we should really do is get ourselves lined up. Now, this is a good thing to do if you're actually doing the docking. getting yourself orientated in a very specific axis, so in this case north-south, but also this will mean that our solar panels will be exposed to the sun at whatever position around our orbit we are at, so that'll just make sure we are adequately charged for our little journey into space. So that's pretty good. Now let's just rename our vessel. This is going to be the Pirate. This is the Pirate. It contains Jeb, and just so we know which one he's going to be, we will call this the let's call this the station. This will be the Pirate Station, and this is the one that Jeb is going to be rescued from by Val. So let's pop back down to KSC and launch Val in an identical vessel. So here we see Val in another copy of the Pirate and Fade Mark 1. Now this is going to be more or less an identical launch. Now you can see here, this is the KSC, the KSC launch pad. Now, if we were going to be perfect about our launch and rendezvous, we would probably wait until the station was around about here and then launch to a perfect rendezvous. But the whole point of this exercise is to rendezvous, or to practice our rendezvous with a vehicle that perhaps is not in the ideal location. So we're going to leave the Pirate around this side of its orbit, and we're going to carry out a normal launch. We'll launch into a 80-kilometer orbit, which is what our Ascend 5 KOS script does, and as a result we will not be in an ideal position on our orbit, and we'll have to practice our rendezvous. So let's get ourselves up to circularization, and I'll see you there in a few minutes. Okay, so we can see that Val is now in orbit on slightly eccentric 81 to 77 kilometer orbit, but that's fine. That's absolutely fine. Now we can see the Pirate hasn't moved very far along its orbit, so let us just nip in and rename Val's vessel to the Fade, so just so we know it's called the Fade. It will remain with the symbol of a ship, and this is the vehicle that is going to do all of the rendezvousing. Now, as far as rendezvousing is concerned, there are a number of stages, and the first stage is simply for one of the vessels to either catch up or slow down, depending on your point of view. So in Jeb's point of view, he will be going much slower than Val and will therefore be being caught up by Val, who is obviously going a lot faster. So let's click on the Pirate and let's set as the target, and let us then warp forward so that we can catch up or slow down depending on your point of view. Now, let's be careful not to overdo our approach. Now, you'll notice as we try to increase our time warp, you'll notice you cannot go faster than times 50 when below 120 kilometers. Now, there's a trick we can employ here, because the pirate craft, Jeb, is at 236. So let's just drop out of warp and let's go and switch to the pirate vehicle. Let's switch to Jeb. So let's switch our point of views to Jeb's point of view. There he is, serenely north-south as we left him. So let's go back into map view, and now let's set Fade as the target. Now, if we go up in time warp, let's just center on Kerbin, we can now go up to a total of times 100. Now, if we put Jeb in an even slightly higher orbit, over 240, Jeb would then have been able to go at an even faster rate. Now, we have very, very quickly caught up with Jeb, so let us go back to the Fade vessel. Let's switch back to the Fade vessel and put in a maneuver node to allow us now to swing out and join Jeb in his orbit. So let's get ourselves a maneuver node and let's see how well we can match our approach. So let's just move our maneuver node around, and you see that by here we will swing out and be within 7.5 kilometers of Jeb when he gets around to this side of the this side of the airport, this side of the planet. Now, which way do we need to go to make it a little bit closer? There we go, 8.5. Let's try going the other way. 8.4. Still 8.4. 7.7. 7.5. 7.8 seems the closest we can get. Now that might be because our planes are slightly off as well. So what we might like to do is just use the other handles to adjust our orbital plane. Now we've got 0.4 of a degree offset, so let's just see if we can grab our handle and see if we can change that. 0.4, 0.5, wrong direction, 0.2, 0.1, we're getting a lot closer, I think. So we're either 700 or 7. Oh dear, so that's just flipping between two possible contacts. So where were these? 7.9, I don't know if that actually helped. So let's go this way slightly. 7.6, 7.8, I think that's probably going to be our best bet. 7.8, 10, so that's certainly not an improvement. Let's go back this way. 712, I don't think so. 7.7, I think that's probably going to be our best intersect. Now, it probably won't be a perfect maneuver, so let's cross our fingers it stays at 7 when we get around there. So let's just put ourselves on our maneuver node. It's a trivial burn in 4 minutes time, so let's just accelerate towards that maneuver node. Watch this here, so we're down to a minute, down to 45, 30, 20. So let's just go right out of time warp, position ourselves on the maneuver, and then complete the maneuver. There we go. Keep on our maneuver node and then kill the engine. Here we go. So now it reckons 8 kilometers. Well, that's not so bad. I think we did pretty well there. I think we did pretty well. We are going to be within 8 kilometers of our target vessel. So let's just take a quick save at this point, just in case we mess up the rendezvous. But I'm sure we won't. This will be an excellent rendezvous. Val is the perfect pilot for this task. I'm sure she will do an excellent job. So let's just accelerate round to the other side of the planet as Val's craft swings round into the higher orbit. So you can see her catching up the pirate craft containing Jeb as we get much closer. So let's just come out of time warp and just see if we can see. There we go, 21 kilometers away. We can just about see Jeb in the distance. We are going at 110 meters per second relative to Jeb's craft, and the first thing we will want to do when we arrive in this next phase is to cancel out our relative velocity so that we are travelling basically in parallel, and then it's just a matter of adjusting our speed forward and away from the pirate craft with Jeb inside in order to complete the rendezvous. So we've had the first stage, which was to catch up or slow down, depending on your point of view. The second stage, which is to transfer across to our target's orbit. And now in this third phase, we are going to cancel out our target relative velocity in order to come up parallel with our target. So let's just allow ourselves to get in towards that 8 kilometers. 8 kilometers was as close as we're going to get. So we're now at 11, still at 100 meters per second. So as we close in, let us slow down our relative velocities and just come into a parallel orbit. So we're doing it maybe a little bit early, but I'm only doing it at a relatively slow pace. We're only going to about third throttle. There we go. So we are now at 2.5 meters per second relative to our target and 9 kilometers away. That's actually quite a long way. You'd like to be a little bit closer than that when you started this phase, but let's now go towards the target using this purple target marker. And you can see our prograde marker, our direction in space is now more or less in the same direction. So let's just use time warp as we come towards our target, because it's much easier to time warp and then slow down than it is to try and power past your target and then try and stop when you get there. So we're still closing in, but we're starting to drift behind our target. So let's now rinse and repeat. We're going at 19 meters per second. It's a little bit dark, so let's use our X-ray camera just to brighten up our view, because we are now behind Kerbin. There's the Mun right there. We're in the shadow now of Kerbin, so let's concentrate on getting ourselves slowed up again. So let's go and find, so there's our prograde marker. Sorry, there's our retrograde marker, that's our prograde. So we were looking the right way in the first case. There we go. There we are. So let's slow down relative to the target. Make sure you're on target view down here. And bring your speed down to more or less 0. There we go, 1.8. There we are, 4 meters per second, 5 meters per second, that's fine. So let's now swing around to the pink target marker and go towards our target. There's prograde, so we're going towards our target, but not exactly on our target. So we are drifting again, we're kind of drifting behind our target just here. But it's a case of rinse and repeat. So let's speed up time a little and just allow ourselves to get into a little bit closer. So you notice now that our prograde marker is well behind our target, so let's rinse and repeat again. Bring our speed down. And then bring our speed towards the target up again. There we go, 8 meters per second, more or less directly towards it now. Slowly drifting behind again. There we are, 4.8, so let's rinse and repeat again. There's our retrograde marker. Now, if you want to be clever about this, and you've got both your target retrograde and your retrograde on the same display at the same time, you can actually herd your retrograde marker towards the target retrograde marker, a bit like you would if you were landing, and you would be pushing your retrograde marker towards the vertical. There we go. So again, we are now, relatively speaking, going towards the target very, very slowly. And again, you can now use the same technique to pull your prograde marker. So there we go, we've pulled our prograde marker towards our target prograde marker, and now we can just speed up, going directly towards. Again, just a smidgen of throttle, and then use time acceleration to bring you towards it. So there we go, 3.6. Let's rinse and repeat as we come out into the light again. Let's herd our retrograde marker towards the target. There we go again. Relatively slowly towards the target. Let's pull our prograde marker in. As we now go pretty much dead on. Again, don't go too fast. Impatience is the one thing that will kill the cat if it isn't curiosity. So we're now going at about 5 meters a second. We're going directly towards our target. Let's get our contract up. We have to have 2 different vessels, which we do, in orbit of Kerbin, within visual range, and have them kill their relative velocity to achieve the goal. So we're not quite in visual range. That's about 2 kilometers. So let's just use time warp to get in a little bit closer. So 2.9, slowly drifting away. So let's rinse and repeat once more. Let's pull our retrograde marker, push, herd our retrograde marker over toward our target retrograde marker. And we've now achieved our goals. It must be about 2.5 kilometers. So that is our goal done. And we are now pretty much just drifting in parallel, pirate and fade, but never wanting to to go short. Let us pull our prograde marker across again and see if we can get just a little bit closer, because of course, whilst we have now completed our goal of getting 2 vessels close, let's see if we can actually wave one to the other. So we are now going pretty much directly across towards the pirate vehicle, and as the pirate vehicle disappears beneath us, let's see if we can get to within 1 kilometer, just so we can say we did. So let's herd our retrograde marker again, 0.4. Let's pull our prograde. And just a little bit more. Looks like Jeb wants to hunt right underneath us. Hunt? Wants to race. Just want to race just underneath us. So let's see if we can give him a bit of a flyby. Go straight towards him. Can't quite see thee. There it is. Got ourselves going directly towards him. Can't quite see him now against the clouds, so I think that's 1.3 meters. 1.2, there we go, we're now under a kilometre, there we go, under a kilometre. So I think they would, Val and Jeb can now exchange a wave from the cockpit. Let's just make them zero out their relative velocity. There we go. Pirate and Fade in the same shot. So let us get ourselves a shot for Gene, just to prove that we were here. They can just about make out the pirate craft in the distance over there. So let's get a picture of that for Jeb, as we for Jeb, for Gene, and for Val, just to prove that they can make it in orbit. Excellent. We've achieved our goal of rendezvousing 2 vessels in orbit. So we've managed that, and we got 61,000 funds, 10 science, and 24 reputation. And while we were at it, Jeb managed to test the Thumper solid fuel booster at the launch site. Didn't get much for that, but we did complete it. So that has been excellent. So well done, Val, on that perfect rendezvous. Well done, Jeb, on being the perfect pirate, the perfect gentleman pilot. And we will see everyone in the next episode. So thank you for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.